The Impacts of Marie Curie and the Chernobyl Disaster on the Progressing Knowledge of Radiation,
by Nora Yang,
Claire Bayong,
and Jiayu Chen.
1898, Marie and Pierre Curie won the Nobel Prize for discovering both uranium and polonium because of radiation levels from pitchblende, helping people understand what radioactivity is and its danger, which became very clear at the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, where millions of people were affected by radiation, leading to increased safety precautions and knowledge to the dangers of exposure.
Marie Curie's discoveries broke both scientific and gender barriers, and she showed people that women were intelligent while advancing scientific knowledge about radioactivity and its effects on health.
Marie Sklodowska-Curie was born to two school teachers on November 7, 1867, in Warsaw, Poland. She was the fourth daughter and fifth child in the family. By the age of 5, she had already begun to suffer from deprivation. Her mother, Bronislawa, had contracted tuberculosis and avoided even touching her children. By the time Curie was 11, both her mother and her eldest sister had passed away.
When Curie completed her elementary schooling, she entered Warsaw's Floating University, an underground revolutionary Polish school that prepared young Polish students to become teachers. Marie left Warsaw at the age of 17 for her older sister Brania. Both sisters wanted to acquire additional education abroad, but the family could not afford to send either of them. So Marie took a job as a governess to fund her sister's medical education in Paris.
1891, at the age of 24, Curie enrolled at the Sorbonne and became one of the few women in attendance at the university.
Although Branya and her family were helping Curie pay for her studies, living in Paris was still expensive. Not wanting to ask for additional assistance, she subsisted on a diet of bread and tea.
On this regimen, she became anemic and on at least one occasion fainted during class.
In 1893, Curie received a degree in physics, finishing first in her class. The following year, she received a master's degree, this time graduating second in her class. In 1983, the fourth Chernobyl power plant was built in Pripyat, Ukraine. This power plant was one among 4 other power plants at the Chernobyl nuclear station. It was built near the Pripyat River in a woodland area near thousands of people. The fourth reactor was an RBMK-1000. The idea of building the reactor near the river is so that the water from the river could act as a cooling system. The reactor had no major accidents so far, and things usually went smoothly.
The Soviet Union thought that building the Chernobyl nuclear power plant would be a success, like the other nuclear power plants across the country. They hoped that through building the power station, they would be able to increase their national output and make their country the success that they believed it was and could be. Marie and Pierre Curie's marriage, July 25, 1895, marked the start of a partnership that was soon to achieve results of world significance, in particular the discovery of polonium in the summer of 1898 and that of radium a few months later. In 1896, Henri Becquerel discovered that uranium spontaneously emitted mysterious X-ray-like radiation that could interact with photographic film. Following Henri Becquerel's discovery, Marie decided to find out if the property discovered in uranium was to be found in other matters.
Marie soon found out that the strength of radiation depends solely on the element's quantity and was not affected by physical or chemical changes. This led her to conclude that radiation was coming from something fundamental within the atoms of each element, disproving the long-term standing model of atoms.
She then refocused her work on an extremely radioactive ore called pitchblende, realizing uranium alone couldn't be creating all the radiation. She discovered that this was true for thorium at the same time as G.C. Schmidt did. In 1898, the Curies reported 2 new elements, polonium, named for Marie's native homeland, Poland, and radium, the Latin word for ray. They created the word radioactivity in order to describe the elements. By 1902, the Curies had extracted 1/10 of a gram of pure radium chloride salt from several tons of pitchblende, a Sisyphean task at that time.
Henri Becquerel and her husband Pierre Curie, she was awarded the 1903 Nobel Prize for Physics for her work on radioactivity and for discovering uranium, polonium, and radium. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, and she is the only woman to win the award in 2 different fields.
At 1:23:45 seconds on April 26, 1986, the fourth reactor at the power station exploded while workers were running a test on the reactor to see if generators would kick in when the power level was too low. This was a test they had done twice already and both times had failed. When the reactor exploded, a massive amount of radiation was leaked into the air and many workers were killed because of the radiation exposure.
Scientists still don't know the reason behind the explosion because there are many reasons that could have caused it. Part of the reason might be because the junior team was on duty, but the fact that the team was working late at night made it hard for workers to focus because they were sleep deprived. There was also a design flaw in the control rods that are used to absorb neutron particles, slowing or stopping the nuclear chain reaction that generates power. The RBMK design is flawed because of its reactivity, so its power output increases as coolant is lost from the fuel channels.
The disaster released tremendous amounts of airborne chemicals and deadly radiation.
By November, dangerous radiation that was leaking out of the reactor were being contained in a concrete and steel sarcophagus.
This sarcophagus was later deemed structurally unsound, so repairs took place in 2006. People thought that Marie's findings were absurd, especially because she was a woman.
Marie was very outspoken. When she started teaching at the Sorbonne, people didn't believe her for changing their roots of science, even more since she was a woman, after saying that uranium had an unstable atom.
Marie was one of the best-known women scientists of all time, and she is inspiring many women to do things by speaking for what they believe in. She proceeded onward, even though people disapproved of all her ideas because she was a woman.
Because of the amount of radiation people and animals were exposed to, many changes happened. The amount of thyroid cancer cases skyrocketed, and it became more likely for people to get cancer.
Many people got ARS, an acute radiation syndrome, and it made them sick. It was a slow and painful death that only a few people survived. People noticed that cattle showed signs of radioactive mutation, and birds were born with deformed feet and wings.
Scientists said that the Chernobyl area might not be safe for inhabitants for the next 20,000 years, although there are still people that visit the Chernobyl exclusion zone when the Soviet Union opened it to tourists.
Radiation forever changed the history of our world. It has dramatically affected health, major breakthroughs in science, physics, chemistry, and etc. Radiation has proved exceedingly helpful, yet extremely deadly in countless ways. The fact that the Curies discovered radiation, as well as two new elements, broke tremendous barriers in science and health.
Major scientific discoveries were built off the concept of radiation. Marie Curie also broke gender barriers. Being a woman and pursuing a high education was already a burdensome task. Yet she was the first woman to surpass many biases and obstacles.
The Chernobyl disaster in 1986 gestured more to the danger side of radiation. Countless animal species were harmed by the fatal radiation spreading throughout the air. This led to advancements in medical departments, increasing awareness of the danger. Precautions were made and the knowledge of exposure educated the world, breaking barriers in science, nuclear physics, also introducing a new power source as well as how to manage it properly, were some vital changes caused by the incident on April 26th, the Chernobyl disaster.